Oh my god. No.
Yes, Queen!
What's up, drivers? As you may or may not know, I've been searching for a new car. What the fuck? Not a new car, a new to me new car. A used car. And I've been having far from the easiest time navigating the used car market. Every dealership seems to offer you scrap value for your car while charging near enough 10 grand for something in absolutely frightening condition. Throughout this video, in order to legally protect myself from defamation, all of the dealerships I'm going to be talking about in this video will be anonymous. Before we proceed with some dashcam clips from my journeys and some intense ranting, I have to do my Mazda 6 TS2 the justice of showcasing my likes and dislikes about it. If you didn't catch the one I did about my Vauxhall, that'll be up here or up here if you care enough. Of course, the first thing I absolutely love about the Mazda 6 TS2 is its comfort. Although I didn't even know the true potential of the comfort, as I only discovered the lumbar support lever about 2 months before having to get rid of it. I loved the fact that it had a 6 CD changer because it was a huge upgrade from the Vauxhall Meriva, which had just a single CD slot. Another thing that I love about the TS2 is the rigid gear stick. I greatly prefer feeling sturdy gears, as opposed to my mum's Citroen C3 Picasso, which just feels like a massive wobbly dildo. Another item in the list of positives is the storage to my mum's Citroen. Yeah. Back when I had the Vauxhall Meriva, I said this: if my next car doesn't have electric mirrors, then I swear to God I'm going to erect a cage around these things. If I had a penny for every time a passenger or myself has knocked these. And indeed, the Mazda 6 TS2 does in fact have electric mirrors and buttons to control them with. Another thing I love that my dad was struggling to figure out when I first got the car is the armrest, which has this little button that extends it out. This is something I kinda miss with my new car. Another little thing that I love about the TS2 is that you just have to gently press the boot to make it close itself. And of course I loved having cruise control for the first time, even though sometimes it would randomly cause the car to quickly auto-accelerate and I've no idea how or why. Now for the dislikes, the indicator cancelling position. Quite often, especially on roundabouts, you have to put your indication back on. Something it has in common even with my new car, which I do plan on rectifying at some point, is there's no spare tyre. Just the spunk in a bottle that ruins the tyre if you get a slight puncture. I dislike the pointless inclusion of this jack, which is just like purely rusted and fused to the boot. One of the worst things about my TS2 was the weak handbrake, which had actually been repaired a few times across a couple of MOTs in its life. Probably the biggest thing I disliked about my TS2 though, £185 vehicle emissions tax. And finally, the boot latch, which I mentioned earlier. Because if I wasn't quick enough to tell people, they would just... Now when I bought the Mazda, everything seemed great. I had a fresh squeaky clean MOT, 3-month warranty in case anything went wrong, and because I didn't have the eye for rust that I do now...
Old car, rust, guess that checks out.
Then came time for its first MOT under my ownership. Fucking yikes. But you know what? The things I've seen of the used car market make £2,700 back in 2021 a reasonable price for my Mazda 6, even despite the obvious dodgy MOT favours that seem to be bread and butter of some dealerships. I felt unbelievably ripped off and heartbroken that I was going to have to part with my car under just 2 years after buying it, due to the rust being way too expensive to keep repairing as parts continue to fail. And then I started looking at some other used cars. What an excellent place for another customer to park. Time to stop texting, we're moving. What are you doing? After my first outing for a car viewing with intent to purchase, this is what I was met with. I was offered £700 the next morning to remove my review, to which I declined purely because if I'd seen reviews like mine, I wouldn't have bothered going. I'm their only negative review, and only review with pictures. This made me realise that a lot of dealerships are not only paying off bad reviews, but they're also likely buying fake positive ones too. These can often be spotted from a mile away as they have very generic sounding names on a blank profile, and it's their only review. I'm not saying that all of these are fake, but I am saying it's at least suspicious. The next one I arranged started with a request for pictures, but a pushy online salesman booked me in for a viewing. About an hour after I booked the viewing, I thought, I'm gonna go get the link and see what some other people think of this car, and to my horror, it had risen by £1,000 since I'd been booked in for a viewing. So I swiftly told them which one of my fingers they can sit on and spin like a basketball. And now finally back, due to popular demand, it is time to check in. With your mum. My mum's an interesting character. And I get a lot of private messages and emails wanting to see more of her.
What's up, Doc?
So here's this month's healthy dose of Banana Man.
Don't be stupid. Thank you.
I could have had you there.
Well, you went in for a swim now, you're in.
How did you manage that?
Oh my God, I slipped.
I eventually took to posting on my community tab, which I expected to yield more than one result, but huge shout out to Graham for getting in touch with a very exquisite option of a 1972 Rover P5B. Sadly, I wouldn't have the means to properly restore it, but I greatly appreciate the photos and learning of a powerful, attractive classic. Next came another dealership. To save me wasting more time, I was of course already demanding underside and under bonnet pictures before agreeing to a viewing. This dealership quickly sent an under the bonnet picture which looked promising, but said they couldn't send a picture of the underside as they didn't have a ramp to put the car on, but assured me all was in order. Because of their great fast communication, I decided to overlook this and go and see the car regardless. My first complaint after I rejected the test drive was that despite them knowing what time I was coming, I still had to go searching amongst the 170 cars that they bragged about having, and I wasted at least 15 minutes stood nearby an identical car being valeted while John Travoltering. Multiple staff saw me stood around looking confused, but none of them approached me, which prompted my manual search for the car. Anyone who knows me personally will know that the more I can avoid unnecessarily speaking to people, the better. If I've arranged a time to come view and possibly test drive one of your cars, at least spend 5 minutes maybe parking it somewhere obvious. It's not a huge biggie, but don't get snippy with me in an email about it when your customer service is poor. I was met with a pretty bad condition looking rear spring when I found the car. People who've seen this picture have told me it's probably just the outer casing, but if it doesn't look how it should, Personally, I'm not going to entertain it. When I presented my findings to the dealership, they became argumentative, claiming that this damage had randomly happened since the MOT, and then suggested that I take an adjusted approach in future when looking at used cars. Personally, I think my approach has been perfect. They then go on to lie about refusing to send underside pictures and claim they looked at the car and saw no overall issue. I even told them if they just took my criticism on the chin over email, I probably wouldn't have even bothered leaving a bad review. Maybe some dealerships should spend less time arguing with people who already aren't going to be customers and spend that time in a more productive way, like, fixing their ready-to-drive-away broken cars? During the previous wasted trip, I'd also been in touch with another dealership where I actually had my eye on 2 cars. But these guys too found my questions and requests a bit much to bear, and I eventually got ghosted by them too. With them having 2 great looking options, and it being a lot closer to Hull than other places I'd been to, I decided to overlook being blanked by email and go and climb under some of their cars to inspect them myself. One of these cars excited me much more than the other one, but there was a bit of an eyesore on the front bumper. Since everything else about the car looked better than options that they had for significantly more money, I decided to go have a chat with them and see if this damage on the car could be repaired for the same price. They said it could. They pointed me to a nearby local bakery to grab some lunch while they moved some cars, and before I knew it, I was out in the car on my own, seeing what it could do on an open country road. Before we Big fat pigeon. That was literally, you just witnessed my ADHD in action right there. Right.